Locked inside a ledger of brittle vellum, buried beneath centuries of dust and the quiet authority of the Vatican archives, a single page refuses to behave like mere paper. Dark red flecks stain its margins. The handwriting, small, uneven, unmistakably juvenile, tightens mid-line, as if the pen trembled in the grip of a child forced to write too quickly or too afraid to stop. For centuries, this fragment has unsettled archivists. Some dismiss it as a forgery, others whisper that it is a confession. Whatever its origin, the page promises something far more dangerous than scandal, an origin story for a queen, one that transforms a royal wedding into a crucible, and that crucible into a long, patient instrument of revenge. The letter invites us to imagine a scene history prefers to leave blurred. A Florentine girl steps into the blinding theater of the French court, transplanted from Medici corridors into Valois spectacle. Her marriage is not romantic, it is transactional. The union is meant to bind dynasties, produce heirs, and funnel Medici wealth into French power. Publicly, the wedding is joy. Privately, if the fragment is to be believed, it is something else entirely. Behind embroidered drapes, the letter claims, the ceremony continues in secret. Not with midwives, not with family, but with witnesses. An alleged purification unfolds, an intimate rite transformed into a demonstration of authority. 23 courtiers, named one by one, are said to have observed from behind slits in the walls and listening holes masked by tapestries. Their presence is not incidental, it is verification, proof that power may look, judge, and record. The child who would become Catherine de' Medici enters that chamber a bride. She leaves it altered, not broken, but sharpened. These claims are extraordinary, and they demand caution. The fragment is tantalizingly evasive, vivid in atmosphere, restrained in detail. Some historians point to inconsistencies, others detect echoes of court rumor woven into later chronicles. Whether literal truth or narrative invention, the image endures, because psychologically it rings true. A wedding night weaponized into humiliation, a lesson taught not in love, but in leverage. Catherine arrives in France as both commodity and prodigy. Born into the mercantile brilliance of the Medici, she is educated to endure rather than command, trained in languages, botany, etiquette, survival. At court, she encounters a brutal economy of favor where beauty, access, and silence are currencies. Her husband, Henry, the future Henry II, does not belong to her. He belongs to Diane de Poitiers, older, elegant, untouchable. Diane is not merely the king's lover, she is a parallel throne. Lands, offices, influence flow through her hands. And in the darker versions of the fragment's legacy, Diane appears again and again, not always as actor, but as audience. To understand the alleged humiliation, one must understand Catherine's position. Young, foreign, isolated, evaluated under the collective gaze of men who treated women as proofs of hierarchy. The purification, as described, is not ritual, it is theater. A woman's vulnerability staged to reaffirm order. Whether the event occurred as written, or whether it was later crafted to explain Catherine's later reputation, the image performs a crucial function. It binds powerful men to a shared secret, while gifting the woman at its center an indelible memory. And a ledger. Content warning. The following section implies sexual humiliation and psychological trauma. No explicit acts will be described. The fragment depicts the chamber as a controlled stage. Candles sputter, throwing faces into chiaroscuro. Tapestries muffle footsteps. Hidden apertures allow watching eyes to decide what is acceptable, what is defective, what must be corrected. If the scene feels theatrical, it is because court life itself was theater. What emerges next is the most disturbing turn. The Catherine who leaves the chamber does not rebel, she does not accuse. She disappears into silence and into study. According to the fragment, she memorizes faces, records names. The number 23 is not incidental. It is not a crowd. It is a list, a ledger. Later retellings expand this transformation into myth. Trauma becomes strategy. Silence becomes inventory. A small private book appears across sources, a diary where names are recorded, dates noted, and symbols etched. A vial, a folded note, 3 interlocking circles. Not evidence, signatures. What follows in the narrative tradition is not a frenzy, but patience. The first attributed death is quiet. A courtier falls ill. No wound, no accusation. Just a glass left behind, a residue noticed too late. Chroniclers warn us, poison is a favored accusation in early modern courts, a metaphor as much as a method. Sudden death was common, proof was rare. And yet, the stories persist. Each death in these accounts mirrors the original humiliation, slow, hidden, witnessed only by those who know where to look. Whether factual or symbolic, the pattern reveals something deeper. When women wield indirect power, history calls it unnatural. Diane de Poitiers, in the most dramatic versions, becomes the ultimate reckoning, not through spectacle, but attrition. Lands reclaimed, offices reassigned, favor eroded. Some accounts whisper of illness, others insist Catherine simply waited until power itself did the work for her. The ledger of 23 names, literal or mythic, drives the story forward. Some names align with known courtiers, others appear corrupted by transcription. One, rendered as Anon de Bois in later copies, likely reflects a misread Latin hand rather than a real identity. Each inconsistency reminds us this is not a clean archive, it is a palimpsest. The narrative reaches its climax in 1559. A tournament, a lance, a splinter through the eye. Henry II dies days later after a joust against Gabrielle de Montgomery. History records infection, failed surgery, the limits of Renaissance medicine, but legend cannot resist symmetry. Some later readers of the fragment claim symbols etched into the lance head resemble the 3-circle emblem. Others speak, without forensic certainty, of residue. Scholars urge restraint. Pattern seeking is not proof. Yet, symbolically, the moment is devastating. A king falls in the most public theater of masculinity. If the wedding night was humiliation behind tapestry, the joust is judgment in sunlight. Still, history refuses neat conclusions. Catherine de Medici emerges instead as an ambiguous figure, victim, survivor, strategist, a woman navigating power through the only channels available to her. Whether monster or master depends entirely on where one places the moral lens. The Vatican fragment endures because it leaves questions unresolved. Was it confession, black legend, a later psychological explanation for political ruthlessness? Even the bloodstains resist certainty, inkblot, rust, dye, or something more dramatic. What we can say responsibly is this: the story reveals how power, gender, and rumor intertwine. Whether or not Catherine poisoned a soul, her reputation was shaped by the belief that she could, and that belief was enough. The page remains, a mirror and a mask, reflecting the anxieties of its authors as much as the life it claims to expose. So we end where we began, with a fragment that refuses silence. Was Catherine de Medici a woman transformed by trauma into a patient architect of power? A monstrous avenger shaped by humiliation? Or something more unsettling? Someone who understood that survival in a court built on spectacle required consequence? Tell us in the comments which interpretation you believe. And if this story gripped you, choose the next archive to open. Another alleged poisoner? Another queen undone by rumor? Subscribe. History is full of ledgers that were never meant to be read aloud.